Good evening, children, once again. Today we will be reading a story. The name of the story here is The Invention of Vita, Wonk. It is taken out from class 7, Honeycomb. It's again a humorous story. It's a scientific humor, When we read the story, you'll find lots of humorous elements. When I say humorous, I'm talking about the things that makes you laugh. I'm talking about funny elements. When you read the line, you feel like laughing. So these kind of elements are there in this story called The Invention of Vita, Wonk. Humorous. Number 2, when we finish reading it, we will be able to understand how important our imagination is, how important our curiosity is to discover something new or to invent something new. So these are some of the value that we will be imbibing or we will be absorbing when we read this story called The Invention of Vita, Wonk. In this story, we have 2 characters. When I say character, meaning it can be a person or it can be anything that speaks something in the story. That is called a character. So, in this story we have 2 characters. Number 1 is Mr. Willy Wonka, the scientist, and number 2 character is Charlie, his assistant. So these are the 2 characters that we have in this story. Apart from these characters, we have also lots of things mentioned in this story. Things like trees, things like oldest things, not only tree, the oldest things found all over the world or around the world. These are some of the things you will find or we will find while we read this story called The Invention of Vita, Wonk. Let's read the story and enjoy it. Before the story begins, what happened is Mr. Willy Wonka had invented Wonka White. He invented one medicine called Wonka White. So before the story begins, what we have learned is Mr. Willy Wonka had invented a tonic called Wonka White. What does it do? What does Wonka White do? Wonka White made people youngest. But this tonic is so strong that the person who consumes it, he suddenly becomes so young that one person even, his age went to minus 87, Imagine, minus 87. He consumed Wonka White. The power of this tonic is so strong that the person who consumes this tonic, his age or his year turned into minus 87. That means he has to wait another 87 years to come to life. He has to wait another 87 years. So that is a big problem for Mr. Willy Wonka. He has got a problem. He made a medicine or a tonic to make people young, but the power of that tonic is so strong that it even made person's age minus 87. So he has got a problem. What is the problem? The problem is that his Wonka White is very strong. Now he had to invent another medicine that makes people grow older very fast. So that is a problem. That's a challenge before him. Now let's see whether he was able to invent the new tonic to make people old or to solve this problem. Let's read and enjoy the story. Mr. Willy Wonka said, "Once again, I roll up my sleeves," like this. He rolled up his sleeve, meaning thereby he was ready to work, to invent a new tonic. Mr. Wonka said, "Once again I rolled up my sleeves and set to work Now he began to walk, rolling up his sleeve like this. He just set to walk. Once again, I squeeze my brain. Squeeze my brain means he started thinking deeply. He was focusing, he was concentrating, trying to find out solution to his problem, squeezing his brain. He squeezed my brain, searching for the new recipe. Recipe here means the items that you need for making something. That is called the list. Recipe here means simply the list. So he was trying to find out a solution to his problem. I had to create AIDS means he had to find a medicine to make people old. To make people old. Old, older, oldest. Big, bigger, biggest, like this. Ha, 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 he said, I cried. For now the new ideas were beginning to come. So he started folding up his sleeve. He started focusing his mind. Now, once he started doing all these things, new ideas to solve his problems are coming to his mind. So he was laughing. Then he asked 2 questions. Number 1, what is the oldest living thing in the world? Number 1 question. What is the oldest living thing in the world? Second question, what lives longer than anything else? So by asking these 2 questions, he started doing his job to find out a tonic to make people old. So he asked this question to whom? He asked these 2 questions to his assistant, Charlie. Then Charlie took some time and he replied. Charlie replied to the question, is it a tree? A tree? Charlie said. Then Mr. Wonk said, right you are, Charlie. Yes, it's a tree. But what kind of a tree? It is not a Douglas fir. The oldest living thing on the earth is a tree. Of course, it's right. Mr. Wonk said to Charlie, but what kind of tree? It is not the Douglas fir. It is not the oak. It is not the cedar. No, my boy. It is not Douglas fir. It's not oak tree. It's not cedar tree. No, it's not all this tree. The oldest tree, it is called the Bristol corn pine that grows upon the slopes of the Wheeler Peak in Nevada, USA. So Mr. Wonk said that the oldest living thing on the earth is a tree. And the name of that tree is called Bristol corn pine. And that tree grows on the hills of Wheeler Peak in Nevada, USA. You can find Bristol corn pines on the Wheeler Peak today that are over 4,000 years old. And Mr. Wonk says that Bristol corn pines are so old that sometimes the years is around 4,000 years old. Bristol corn pine. Where are they found? They are found in the Wheeler Peak in Nevada, USA. So he again continued, Mr. Wonk continued. This is a fact, Charlie. Means whatever he said, Bristol corn pine, 400 years old, is found in Nevada, USA. These are all true information, he said to Charlie. And he again continued saying, if you don't believe, you can ask any dendrochronologist. Dendrochronologists, they are the person who studies the rings of the trunk of a tree, and they can tell you many things about the climate, about the surrounding, about the temperature, even about the year of a tree. Dendrochronologists, they can tell you. So this is a new word for you. Please understand it. Dendrochronologist. So Wonk says, if you don't believe in whatever I said, Charlie, you can go and you can ask dendrochronologists if you like. Then, now, he got the answer. Mr. Willy Wonka got the answer then. he wanted to collect these all things. He wanted to collect piece of Bristol confines, not only this, all this thing found around the earth. Then what did he do? Then he jumped into the great glass elevator, meaning it's some kind of aeroplane, some kind of flying machine, wherein he can travel around the world to collect the oldest living things found on this globe. So I jumped into the great glass elevator. Great glass elevator is a flying machine, and rushed all over the world collecting special items from the oldest living things. Now Mr. Willy Wonka went into his great glass elevator to collect the piece of oldest living things around the earth. Number one collection is a pint of sap from a 4,000-year-old Bristol corn pine. Number one in his recipe. Number two collection is the toenail clippings from a 168-year-old Russian farmer called Petrovich Gregorovich. Number three, he collected an egg laid by a 200-year-old tortoise belonging to the king of Tonga. Number four collection is the tail of a 51-year-old horse in Arabia. Number five is the whisker, the whisker, the long hair here, the whisker of a 36-year-old cat called Crumpets. Next is an old flea. It's a kind of fly. An old flea which had lived on the crumpets for 36 years. Next item he collected is the tail of a 207-year-old giant rat from Tibet. Next item is the black teeth of a 97-year-old grimalkin living in a cave on Mount Popocatépetl. Then the last item he collected is the knuckle bones of a 700-year-old Catalu from Peru. So Mr. Willy Wonka went in his great glass elevator around the world and collected these piece of items from the oldest living thing around the world. Then what did he do next? All over the world, Charlie, he said to Charlie. He continued narrating the story. He said, all over the world, Charlie, Mr. Wonka went on. I tracked down. Track down means he went search. Okay? He searched. He tracked down very old and very ancient animals and took an important little bit of something from each one of them. So he said to Charlie, he just went around the world. He just searched small pieces of the oldest living thing found on this earth. Sometime, what did he do? He collected a hair or even an eyebrow. Or sometime it was no more than an ounce. An ounce here means, ounce means very small. Ounce means very small. Even, he collected, what did he do? He collected hair, or he collected eyebrows, or he collected even a small ounce or two of jam scraped from between its toes while it was sleeping. He collected small pieces of the part of the body of oldest living thing found on the earth. I tracked down these are the oldest living things he just found out by searching. What are they? Number one, I tracked down the whistle pig, the bobolink, the scrog, the polyfrog, the giant curlicue, the stinging slug, and the venomous squircle. So these are again the other oldest thing from whom he collected small pieces. So, who then? The venomous squircle who can spit poison right into your eye from 50 yards away. So he just mentioned all these things. The Bristol confine, then the cave, then he mentioned all these things to Charlie. Then what did he say? But there is no time to tell you about them all now. He said, no, what is the point of, I don't want to mention the long list of all these things to you. Sorry, he said, no time to tell you all these things. Sorry. Let me just say quickly that in the end. Now, Mr. Willy Wonka, he was able to collect small pieces from the oldest living thing found around the world. Then what did he do with all those small pieces of the oldest living thing? What did he do? He just mixed up, then he boiled them. After lots of boiling and bubbling, mixing up, doing all this boiling, mixing up, then testing in my inventing room. So he started making the tonic, mixing all those oldest living things. The parts of the oldest living thing he collected from around the world. He just put it in a jar. He started boiling them up. He mixed up in his inventing room, in his laboratory. After doing many bubbling, many boiling, at last I produced one tiny cup full of oily black liquid and gave 4 drops of it to a brave 20-year-old Oompa Loompa volunteer to see what happened. Now, in his inventing room or in his lab, he just boiled them, mixed up them, then he produced a tiny cup full of oily black liquid. He produced small, very small quantity of oily black liquid, and he gave that oily black liquid. He gave that liquid to whom? To a volunteer. Volunteer means a person who was ready to do something. Now, here Oompa Loompa volunteer means this very person is ready to take the test of that newly invented tonic. So, this Mr. Willy Wonka gave 4 drops of that oily black liquid, 4 drops only, to that Oompa Loompa volunteer. What happened next? It was fantastic when the Oompa Loompa volunteer take the medicine or the tonic. He just suddenly changed himself. How did he change? Let's see. It was fantastic, cried Mr. Wonka. The moment he swallowed it, means the moment the volunteer took the liquid, he began wrinkling. Wrinkling is, you might have seen your grandma's skin, grandpa's skin. Their skins are not as straight as ours. Alright? So that kind of skin, of your grandma, grandpa, who are very old, their skin is wrinkled skin, not straight skin. So suddenly the volunteer's skin also becoming wrinkling and shivering up all over, and his hair started dropping off. Suddenly the hair from the Oompa Loompa volunteer falling down. What happened to him? His teeth also falling down. What happened to him? He was growing old very fast. Wrinkling skin, falling teeth, falling hair, these are a sign of growing old. Started falling out, and before I knew, he had suddenly become an old fellow of 75. Suddenly, the Oompa Loompa volunteer, who was only 24 years old, when he consumed that medicine, he just became an old man of 75 years. And thus, my dear Charlie, was Vita Wonk invented. In that way, this tonic was invented. This tonic, what does it do? It makes people old. This medicine, what does it do? It makes people young. Please don't forget. Before we wind up the story, let's read the summary. The Invention of Vita Wonk, Class 7, Chapter 7, Honeycomb. Mr. Willy Wonka was an inventor who invented a medicine called Wonka White to make people young. But the medicine was so strong that a few people disappeared by taking his medicine. So Mr. Wonka started his work to find a medicine to make people old, or to counter the result of Wonka White. He looked out for all living things around the world. Charlie thought it must be a tree. Then he listed a number of all trees, and from amongst the tree listed, he said, Bristol corn pines grown upon the slopes of Wheeler Peak is the oldest tree. So Mr. Willy Wonka jumped into his great glass elevator to collect special items like pink obsap from the Bristol corn pine, toenail clipping from the Russian farmer, a tortoise egg, and various other things. Once he collected these items, he boiled, he bubbled, mixed and tested in his inventing room on a brave 20-year-old Oompa Loompa volunteer. He poured 4 drops only of that black liquid. The volunteer started showing the signs of growing old. His teeth fell down, his hair started dropping off. He became an old fellow of 75 years. Thus, Vita Wonk was invented. Thank you.